Epstein files. What the documents really reveal. Some documents don't scream, they whisper, names appear, flights are logged, testimonies are recorded, but none of it gives simple answers. Tonight, we are not here to accuse. We are here to understand what the Epstein files actually reveal, and what they don't. Who was Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein was a wealthy financier with powerful connections. He moved through elite circles, politicians, billionaires, celebrities. In 2008, Epstein was convicted for soliciting a minor. That part is confirmed. But what shocked the world later was not just the crime. It was how many powerful people were close to him and how little was publicly known for years. What are the Epstein files? When people say Epstein files, they are not talking about one secret list. They are referring to court documents including witness depositions, civil lawsuits, flight logs, emails, sealed and later unsealed records. These documents come mostly from civil cases, not criminal convictions. And that matters. Because being mentioned is not the same as being guilty. The flight logs. One of the most discussed pieces of evidence is Epstein's private jet logs. The plane was nicknamed the Lolita Express by the media. The logs show who flew, when, and where. But a name on a flight log only proves presence. Not participation, not knowledge, not guilt. Some passengers say they had no idea what Epstein was doing behind closed doors. Others say the environment felt wrong. The documents do not resolve this conflict. The testimonies. Several witnesses gave sworn testimonies. Some alleged abuse. Some described seeing powerful figures around Epstein. Some said they were trafficked. Others disputed these claims. In civil court, testimonies are allegations, not verdicts. That distinction is often lost online, but it is critical. Courts record what people say. They do not automatically declare it true. Famous names and public confusion. Many recognizable names appear in documents. Some have denied all wrongdoing. Some admit association but deny knowledge. Some were never charged. The files do not declare guilt. They show proximity, and proximity alone is uncomfortable, but not proof. What we still don't know. There are sealed records, missing evidence, destroyed data. Epstein died in jail in 2019, officially ruled a suicide. That death ended many investigations and answered very few questions. What remains is uncertainty. Closing thought. The Epstein files do not tell us who to hate. They tell us something more disturbing. That power creates silence, that wealth creates protection, and that the truth, when buried long enough, becomes harder to prove, even when victims speak. The question is not just who was involved. The question is, how many stories never reach a courtroom? Epstein files. Part 2. Witnesses, flights, and gaps. In Part 1, we looked at what the Epstein files are. In Part 2, we look closer, not for conclusions, but for gaps. The witnesses. Several women gave sworn testimony in civil court. They described recruitment, manipulation, and abuse. Some stories overlap. Some contradict. Trauma does not always speak in perfect timelines. Courts record these voices, but they do not decide truth by emotion alone. The island and locations. Epstein owned multiple properties. The most infamous was a private island. Witnesses claim abuse occurred there. Others say they were never present. Physical locations matter because evidence should live there. But much of it was never preserved. Money and influence. Epstein's wealth raised questions long before his arrest. Who funded him? Why was he protected in 2008? Why did investigations stall? The files do not answer these questions. They only show that influence often moves faster than justice. The unsealed documents, when some records were unsealed, the public expected clarity. What they got instead was complexity. Names appeared without charges. Claims appeared without verdicts. Transparency does not always bring closure. Epstein's death. Epstein died in jail in 2019, officially ruled a suicide. Regardless of opinion, one fact is undeniable. His death ended many investigations before they reached answers. Final question. The Epstein files are not a verdict. They are a mirror, showing how power, money, and silence can exist around harm for years. The most disturbing part is not what we know, it's how much we never. Epstein Files, Part 3. Why cases collapse around power. When people ask why cases like this collapse, they assume the answer is conspiracy. Sometimes the answer is simpler. Power doesn't need secrets, it only needs delay. Time is a weapon. In cases involving influence, time becomes protection. Investigations slow down, evidence degrades. Witnesses move on, forget details, or lose the strength to speak. Justice delayed is often justice denied. Legal complexity. Powerful defendants don't fight with emotion. They fight with procedure, motions, appeals, jurisdiction challenges. Every delay is legal. Every delay is exhausting. And not every victim can afford to wait years. Settlements and silence. Civil cases often end in settlements. Money changes hands. Documents stay sealed. Non-disclosure agreements are signed. To the public, it looks like closure. In reality, it's silence, legally enforced. Reputation as armor power brings credibility. Accusations sound louder when the accused is unknown. When the accused is wealthy or respected, doubt shifts toward the accuser. Victims are questioned. Motives are attacked. Reputation becomes a shield. The cost of speaking? Speaking out is not free. It costs privacy. It costs mental health. It costs safety. Some witnesses disappear from public life not because they lied, but because surviving scrutiny becomes impossible. When the central figure is gone. When Epstein died, the central defendant was gone. Without him, prosecutors faced higher standards and weaker leverage. The case didn't explode. It evaporated. Final thought. The Epstein files don't prove that justice failed. They show how fragile justice becomes when it meets power. Not because courts don't work, but because systems move slower than influence. End line. Sometimes the truth isn't hidden. It's just buried under paperwork, time, and silence. Epstein Files, Part 4. Media silence versus media frenzy. Some stories explode overnight. Others barely make a whisper. The difference is not evidence, it's who the story touches. When media goes quiet. In the early years, Epstein's name appeared quietly. Local news, short articles, minimal follow-up. Not because the story was small, but because it was uncomfortable. Powerful connections make newsrooms cautious. Access is currency. Media depends on access. Interviews, advertisers, legal safety, reporting on powerful people risks all three. Silence is rarely ordered, it's negotiated. The frenzy phase. Once Epstein was arrested, silence ended, headlines multiplied, documentaries rushed out, every outlet covered the story. But mostly, after the risk was gone, reporting became safe only when the damage was already done. Simplification for clicks. Complex stories don't travel well online. Algorithms prefer villains and heroes. Long investigations become short headlines. Alleged becomes ignored. Nuance disappears. Truth becomes entertainment. Public outrage has a shelf life. Outrage burns fast. Then it moves on. New stories replace old ones. Victims remain, but attention fades. Media cycles reward emotion, not resolution. Who controls the narrative? When coverage fades, silence returns. Not because nothing matters, but because attention has limits. The most powerful stories are not the ones shouted loudest, but the ones forgotten fastest. Final thought. The Epstein story shows us how media works. Not how evil individuals are, but how systems decide what we hear and when. Silence and noise are both tools. End line. The question is not, why didn't they report it? The question is, why did they wait? Epstein Files. Part 5. Why victims wait years to speak. The question people ask is simple. Why didn't they speak sooner? The answer is not simple at all. Shock does not speak loudly. Trauma does not always scream. Sometimes it freezes. Many victims don't fully understand what happened to them until years later. The mind protects itself by delaying pain, not by erasing it. Power changes everything. Speaking out is different when the accused is powerful. Money hires lawyers. Influence controls narratives. Victims calculate risk before truth, and sometimes silence feels safer than honesty. Shame is a weapon. Shame doesn't belong to victim, but it often lives with them. They fear disbelief, judgment, being blamed. Society asks painful questions. Why were you there? Why didn't you leave? Each question pushes silence deeper. The cost of speaking. When victims speak, they don't just share a story. They relive it in courtrooms, on screens, and comment sections. Every detail becomes public property. Many decide the price is too high. Time does not heal. Safety does. People don't speak when they're hurt. They speak when they feel safe. Safety can take years, sometimes decades. Silence is not weakness, it is survival. Why these stories matter? The Epstein files are not just documents, they are reminders that truth does not follow headlines. It follows healing, and healing has no deadline. Final thought. Asking why victims waited asks the wrong question. The real question is, why did the world make it so hard to speak at all? End line. Silence is not consent. Silence is often the sound of fear learning how to breathe. Epstein Files. Finale. What this case really teaches us. This series was never about a list. It was never about one man. It was about what happens when power meets silence, and how difficult truth becomes in between. This case was never simple. People wanted clear villains, clear justice, clear endings. But reality doesn't work that way. The Epstein case shows that some stories don't resolve. They linger. Systems matter more than names. Individuals come and go. Systems remain. Legal delays, media cycles, economic power, social fear. These systems don't need coordination to fail people. They fail quietly, by design. Why documents are not enough. We believe documents equal truth. But documents are incomplete. They show fragments. They exclude fear. They miss what was never reported. Justice requires more than paper. It requires courage, protection, and time. The cost of looking away. Silence protects power. Indifference enables harm. Not because people are evil, but because discomfort is avoided. Looking away always feels harmless until it isn't. What this story asks of us, not outrage, not obsession, awareness, skepticism without cruelty, curiosity without accusation, and the humility to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to listen. Final message. The Epstein files do not give us closure. They give us responsibility to question power, to protect voices that risk everything to speak, and to remember that justice is not a moment. It is a process we either support or silently weaken. Last line. History doesn't repeat because people forget facts. It repeats because people forget to care.